with the Devs of Schell Games. This is the first dinner with the devs in the studio since I think February 2020. So it has been a long time, almost 2 years since we last done. Exactly 2 years since we last done dinner with the devs at the studio. So we are thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to talk about lost recipes and to do some cooking with another dev. And I think Shawn at home is going to be cooking as well. So what are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to talk about our virtual reality cooking game or cooking simulation. We'll talk about the difference between a game versus a simulation, since there's been some talk about that. Tim and I at the studio, and Shawn at his undisclosed location is going to cook some mulled wine. We ran a poll on YouTube about what you would like for us to cook during this dinner with the devs, and overwhelmingly, and thank you folks, good looking out for us, we're going to cook some mulled wine. And the recipe that we are going to use follows very closely the recipe that the team did for the virtual reality game. So before we start cooking, let's have some introductions. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get started. So first, the one guy out of the studio. Go ahead, Shawn. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the project.
Sure. Yeah. Can you guys hear and see me all right?
Yes, we can. You're a little soft, but keep going.
All right. Yeah, I'll speak up. I am Shawn Patton. I'm the design director of Lost Recipes. And this is my kitchen, and I will attempt to make mulled wine, which should be fairly easy, although my orange is a little old, but it'll probably be fine.
Good stuff. And next to me.
Hi, I'm Tim Tournay. I'm a senior engineer here at Schell Games, and I was the tech director on this project. So I'm excited to cook. And if you spill, Shawn, you'll spill in real life, so be careful.
And as always, Dwayne here, marketing manager for the studio, and I've been doing a lot of the promotion work behind Lost Recipes, so getting content creators to play the game. If you've seen an ad about the game, that is with me and part of the marketing team. Now, who you don't see is the rest of the marketing team, who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting as well. Allie, our marketing coordinator, helped with a lot of these lights in the setup, making sure that our second screen that you see right here with the wine and everything is up with some good lighting. We have Adam or Kudakuma in the Discord managing the questions and doing a lot more of the live chat and the question spotting. So thank you, Adam, for your work behind the scenes. And then our senior director, Jill Schulich, who makes sure that we are able to do this every month and giving us the ability to do it. So thank you all. Yes, Adam, greetings, chefs. We're going to hopefully live up to that name. We're going to talk a little bit about what Lost Recipes is. We're going to dive into the mulled wine recipe, and while it cooks, we'll talk some game dev. So before that, if you have any questions in the Discord or watching on YouTube, please put it in the live chat so Adam can spot the questions for us. And the stream's going to go about an hour. The mulled wine recipe that we have will take about 25 to 30 minutes. So we'll get a chance to enjoy some wine during the talk. So Shawn, tell us a little bit about Lost Recipes while I get our ingredients ready.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Lost Recipes. So we've done some other projects, sort of smaller ones, that had to do with VR that were a little more on the relaxing side. And we thought maybe there was, people who felt the same way, that some relaxing VR games would be nice. Because a lot of the games that are for VR, while excellent, not super relaxing. Jesse, he was enamored with the idea of sort of being this tourist through time. And so we were thinking about that. We were thinking about cooking games. We were thinking about all these things. And sort of the culmination of that was what turned into Lost Recipes. But yeah, we were very excited about the idea that you could you could experience what it's like to really make something from a different culture, even a different time period, maybe using the tools of that time period. Something we discovered really early on in prototyping was if there's a bunch of craziness, if the physics is doing crazy things, or basically if you have a lot of time pressure, you get sort of overwhelmed and you don't take the kitchen seriously. And so we really wanted to see if we could make a game where everything felt real, you were very immersed, and again, to go with the relaxing thing, you sort of had time to do it. And it turned out that the more time we spent making things feel real, that our players would take things seriously and it would feel immersed. And we knew we were on the right track when we had a player who had a bunch of marinade, and they're like, well, I need to dump this out, but I don't have a place to dump it out. Because they didn't want to dump it on their virtual floor. And so we knew we were going in the right direction when people were taking their virtual kitchen so seriously that they didn't want to mess it up. And but yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, and there's some really cool components of the game as well. I like your point about making the game feel real, and I think some of that comes from the mechanics of the game. So, what were some of the intentional decisions that the team made to make sure that the cooking, the mechanics of it, felt as real as possible?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of cooking games out there in VR, but there's not any simulators that are on the Quest. You can get like a cooking simulator if you have a expensive gaming PC. But there's nothing on mobile VR. So we tried to do, and the reason is it's kind of hard to do that kind of stuff on a mobile processor. So we took some mechanics that were pretty challenging to get to work, because we've done liquid simulations and things like that in other VR games, but again, not mobile. So we took a long time figuring out how to make liquids work realistically, so you can pour things from different containers and the volumes are all consistent. The colors mix properly, which is actually really challenging. You want to be able to cook things, so there's certain things you can cook. If you take meat and cook it, it cooks on the side near the fire, but it's raw on the other side, so you have to turn it. So we try to get those kind of mechanics that felt very real. And again, they weren't like gamified time pressure, like overcooked or something like that. It was supposed to feel like you were really, in a physical world cooking at your own pace. So but doing dynamic cutting and dynamic cooking and dynamic liquids were all really challenging on a mobile VR device.
Yeah. So whenever you were looking at those challenges, what were some? I'm trying to think so you don't have to get too technical, but what were some ways that you got around to making sure that happened in a mobile device like the Quest?
It was just experimenting and prototyping.
Okay. We
had some ideas like with liquid, there's a lot of ways you can do liquid simulation, and most of them either look bad or too expensive to run on a Quest. So we really sat down and figured out sort of a way that sort of blended the best of both worlds. It took a long time, but you couldn't use any existing examples. We really had to come up with a lot of things from scratch, which was challenging. There's a limit on the number of things that can be sort of active in the world at the same time. So we had to come up with really smart ways of showing, the dozens of interactable things that might be around you and interacting and stacked on top of each other. And the different food items, like limiting, how much you can cut something. Yeah, dynamically cutting things with a knife is really expensive. So figuring out how to limit that and not make it run really slow and choppy was pretty challenging. But yeah, we just found the limit. We found what can we get away with, and that's where we drew the line. So, but yeah, it was tough because we did have to write a lot of stuff from scratch instead of using sort of existing library sort of things.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really cool aspects about the game. It's even though it's a VR cooking game and you have these number of recipes, but how immersive it is in the game that you're in Song Dynasty China and you're julienning the ginger, and it just feels like you're actually doing it. It's so cool. And so you're not just learning. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. It is how I julienne the ginger in real life, but thinking, how could you possibly have done it in VR, writing it in from scratch because it wasn't previously there before. That's a really cool thing that the team was able to do.
Yeah.
So just props to you, props and kudos to the team.
Thank you.
So another thing, and I think you touched on it, Shawn, that I wanted to, and I want to throw to the chat too. Why is cooking in VR so fun, or why is it such a theme now of people trying to do it? Like, I get the point about being able to do something and you don't have to clean it up, but that's not necessarily the fun part about it. So, Shawn, Tim, you guys can, elaborate. What made the game? How did you guys discover that this game was going to be fun?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of in VR, you want good affordances for the player, right? So, when I see that thing, I know what to do with it. I know how to interact with it. So I think cooking games in general have that a lot of times by default, because we've all cooked to some degree in our lives, right? Some more than others. But so it's really nice to have that affordance. And then it's really nice when that is paid off well, right? So some cooking games that are meant to be fast, you're filling orders and things like that, maybe each thing has one thing you can do with it or a couple things you can do with it. Since we were trying to go for this really immersive, this sort of, a cooking game where you can actually learn to cook from it, we wanted to make sure that you could, add that ingredient to other ingredients, right? You can add wine to your bread and make your bread a different color. You can, add more spices and you'll see more spices in it. And so when we started to have all these systems in place, system for cooking, system for pouring and mixing, we noticed that just combining those systems in different ways as you played was really very satisfying, and the feedback was right there in the system, right? Like if you cook the cubes of pork without turning them, the bottom of the cubes of pork will burn before the top, right? And so it's like these just the fun interactions were there, but we just had to make sure that they were all accessible and that our systems supported them. But that's part of why it's like, once you have a systemic game, a game built around these systems, you have to be very careful, because it's very easy to break those systems by adding other parts. But as long as you keep them all working well enough, then the fun is there, and just the interactions. And can I do this? Oh, I can. That's great, right? That just feels really good.
Cool. All right. Well, Adam, if you want to turn the camera back on, we're going to start making some of the mulled wine. Mulled wine is one of the first recipes in the game, right? So if you're not familiar with Lost Recipes, there are 3 major kitchens, and you start out in ancient Greece, around the building of the Pantheon. And then you go from Song Dynasty China, then to 16th century Maya. So what we're going to do now, we're going to work on, thank you, Adam. We're going to work on the mulled wine. And so what we have here, we have a nice Spanish Grenache here. And what we have to do first, we have to put it in the oven, or not in the oven, on the stove. Some people use a crock pot. We're just going to use a Dutch oven here. And what we want to do, we want to warm it up to a point where it kind of starts to froth, but not to the point where it starts to boil. And we use the whole bottle, and it's Tim and I think there's some people from the marketing team who are going to come down as well to help us out. And along with the wine, we're going to put in some honey to make it sweet, because apparently whenever you cook the wine, some of the sweetness runs off. So that's why they want you to use a more medium body wine, because whenever the sweetness goes off, then it makes it really acidic. And so adding the spices and the honey along with it is going to maintain some of that sweetness whenever the natural sweetness in the wine burns off.
Does this mean I get to drink this whole bottle myself?
What's up?
I said, does this mean I get to drink the whole bottle myself?
Yep.
Yeah, Shawn already won the game. So
How much honey are we putting in?
Wait till it sparkles.
yeah. Oh, so about that, there are a couple of things in the game when we're talking about cooking of how you made sure that the recipes were approachable.
Yeah.
And the sparkling aspect about that is one of those. If you want to go into more detail about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things we were doing, we wanted to make a cooking simulator, but we didn't want it to be very. We wanted it to be approachable, as in you didn't have to sit there and measure 3 teaspoons and 2, ounces and things like that. We wanted it to be a little looser, which is kind of tricky because we still wanted to score you. If you made something unedible, you still needed to be punished or rewarded for doing the right thing. So we sort of eyeballed the spoon sizes and pour sizes and. For feedback for the user, a lot of games like Cooking Simulator VR will show you exactly how many milliliters you're pouring into a thing and what the contents of the bowl is exactly. But especially in ancient times, it was more of take a lot more eyeballing it. So we basically made a lot of logic that says, okay, we'll actually give feedback to the user by showing some sparkles. We called it Mr. Sparkle in The Simpsons, but
Yes.
it was basically you would follow the recipe to say, add honey to your wine, and then you would pour honey in until you saw the sparkles, and then you would stop. And that was actually pretty challenging because, again, it's that balance of the more natural it feels to the player, the harder it was on the tech side. So figuring out sort of this loose, nice, natural feeling systems took a long time to dial in.
See, well, Tim was.
Mine sparkled.
What yours is already sparkling?
Well, I think for the amount of honey I added, and I'm using Maine wild blueberry honey, so I'm gonna have blueberry mulled wine apparently.
We need to make a report card after we're done with this.
We should. That's right. Yeah, actually, we'll bring the marketing team down for a little taste test.
Yeah, we can't judge it. Someone else has to.
Somebody else has to judge. Yeah. But yeah. So along with that, so at one of the local stores here in Pittsburgh, they had a mulled spice kit, so which made things really easy. So in it, there's an orange peel, cassia, cinnamon, cloves, allspice, and nutmeg, all within a bag that I just put in there. So we're going to wait about 20 minutes for it to cook, and then we'll take the bag out, add some orange peel or orange slice in our fancy orange mugs here, and I'll grab a couple more if the marketing team wants to come down, and we'll enjoy it.
Yeah, Shawn, what was the actual recipe? Was it just cinnamon in the game?
What's that?
I don't remember what you put in it. I think it's
Yeah,
cinnamon.
in the game we do the honey and the cinnamon.
The cinnamon
no other
stick,
spices.
the whole stick in, like a hot
You
sauce.
put the whole stick in, yeah.
Yeah, you put
Yeah, I was going to go and get those cinnamon sticks, but a nice lady saw that I was lost in the store, and so she was like, "Oh, honey, just get the kit. I got you." I was like, "Oh, all right."
The hot toddies have been the drink of choice lately at my house. So the cinnamon stick.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, honestly, any drink that has whiskey in it, I'm pretty much down. So that'll work. So, there was one mulled wine recipe that called for brandy, but I didn't feel like running out getting brandy as well. But that feels like much closer to Glühwein to me. I've had Glühwein once or twice, or once whenever I was in Amsterdam, and apparently it was very similar of heating up the wine and putting in the brandy, and actually they gave it to kids too. So I don't know, maybe
I think it was strong. I used to live in the Netherlands for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I've had it plenty of times. I think Belgium did even more of it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think it was my first time. I was like, okay, well, warm wine is kind of weird, but whatever. It's like it's a new cultural thing for me, so I'll try it out. And now we're making it here for the studio. You could turn the camera off for the ingredients for the time being, Adam, until I start cutting the orange. So a little bit more about Lost Recipes, unless there were any questions. Adam, if you wanted to bring any of the questions up, we could talk about the contrast of Lost Recipes versus some of the other time management fast cooking games that we see, and why we thought Lost Recipes was a cool relief to it. So if there, okay. So Sienna says, so many games. I imagine it takes a long time to make each one. So that's a great question. So what was the development time between for Lost Recipes? I know the team had a little bit of a pivot, but if you guys want to talk about the overall development time and the size of the team, that'd be cool.
It was so it was pretty short. I mean, most games, are over a year to develop. I think we had a 9-month schedule.
Okay.
9 months. And I think it started at about 9, and we added 2 or 3 to make sure everything was good. But yeah, initially we built a game that didn't have sparkles. It was supposed to be a lot looser and a lot more sort of casual, no story, not a big story, really minor narration. And we realized a couple months in that, man, we really needed we needed a story that was told, through the ingredients, through the process, and then through the fun facts. And we realized we needed about, order of magnitude more VO, and we need a lot more user feedback. It was really frustrating for users to play the game and not realize if they were doing something right or wrong. And when you're really cooking, you have no idea if you're doing anything right or wrong, but at least you get to taste it. And in VR, we tried to do a tasting mechanic or like an ingredient goggles where you could see what everything was, but none of that worked. So we decided we needed to sort of go back to the drawing board and say, okay, everything you do has to have some feedback. And that's where the sparkles came. That also was, when we say sparkles, not just did you add enough honey, but there was spices and cooking. Is this thing cooked enough? Just a couple other things. There's just a lot of things that required feedback that wasn't always obvious. We initially said, if you cooked it just right, it would sparkle. But a lot of things you're not toasting. You're just sometimes they're raw. Sometimes you need to have them just a little bit cooked. Sometimes you have to cook them multiple times. There's a pork recipe that you have to steam the pork and then also saute the pork. Like you do a bunch of things in the same object. So its cooking state is really hard to track and figure out.
Mm-hmm.
So when we first designed it, it was going to be simple, a lot of simple little recipes. And we realized it was way more fun if we went really deep and into a history. Like if you're going to really learn about cooking in a recipe, you want to get deep. So we ended up making the recipes way more complicated, which meant less recipes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a process to figure out exactly what we wanted to make. And then once we figured it out, another couple months to actually do it. The team size, I think at our peak we were around 20. Do you know what that was, Shawn?
What's that?
What was our peak team size?
Our what size?
Team.
Oh, team.
That's team size.
Oh gosh, I mean it did fluctuate some.
Or was like 10.
10
I think we
to
bubbled up to
15?
maybe 20.
Yeah, maybe 20 at the max.
Okay.
That's the thing. When you pivot, we realize, oh wow, if we're gonna do these really deep, narrated-driven recipes, we need more designers. And if we were going to go deeper into the mechanics, we need another engineer. We were going to have something as simple as a spoon does lots of things. It can scoop spices, it can scoop liquids, it can stir things, it can just hit things just through physics. And all those systems have to interact with each other. And,
real quick, I'm not supposed to let this boil, right?
Froth.
Froth. Yeah.
I got froth. What do I do now? Add the other stuff?
Well, I think you started a couple minutes before us, so we're still about 10 minutes away.
All right, what do I add to it? I just add.
In the game, you boil it. So I say boil it.
Wait, you say?
I'm playing the game. I'm spilling everything on the floor. I don't care.
All right, I'm gonna just do my thing over here.
Yeah, you do your thing, Shawn. We're not going to tell you what to do, but you don't get any sparkles from us.
Cinnamon to taste.
It's the salt. I'd love to be a spoon engineer one day.
The spoon ended up so complicated. That's what it was. It looks like such a simple thing. You realize you have to fish. There's a recipe where you have to use a spoon to fish chunks of meat out of a liquid. And so it's trying to pick up the liquid. It's also trying to stir everything. And then it also has to sort of attach to the spoon because you can't just, if you just raw simulate physics, it's really annoying. There's a lot of physics cheating we have to do. But every time you cheat, you got to make sure it doesn't cheat too much. It's a really delicate balance.
Oh, go ahead, Adam. You can bring up Agent Phoenix's question again. Why did you? Oh, I love this question. This is something I wanted to ask them about. Why did you pick specifically these recipes? Were there other recipes that you were going to pick that didn't make the cut? Two fantastic questions. So let's take the first one. Why? What was the reasoning behind these recipes?
Shawn would have a better.
Can't talk and cook. I mean, we had a lot of different options originally. We had to pare things down a lot as we discovered sort of the depth that each kitchen required. We still wanted to have a good amount of the world represented, and also give folks an opportunity to maybe try something they haven't tried before. But another big factor was what areas and time periods could we get accurate information from. So we had a few, we had at least one, sometimes more than one subject matter consultant for each area. And Melanie, who is the project director, she did a lot of early research, just using books to sort of find interesting areas that had interesting, recipes and sort of food knowledge that we could hopefully impart to our players. And there was also the idea that you could see these through lines. When you start in ancient Greece, you've got charcoal when you were in the city, wood when you were out of the city, but it's sort of fire control in Greece versus fire control in China, where they didn't have they had a lot of wood that would burn faster, and so they had the wok to have high heat over a short amount of time, and that's how the sort of wok cooking got its start. And then compare that to sort of the cooking in the earth that we do in Maya. But we wanted to show sort of the evolution and the different ways that heat, and then also one of the ones we found was skewering, right? Things on sticks, from the meat on the sticks to the fruit on the sticks. It's just it's interesting to see some of these through lines through the different eras and through the different cultures, that came up with them most of the time independently, right? But you see these similarities across time and place. So yeah, trying to come up with recipes that could showcase some of that on a very small timeline of development.
I think with a historical cooking game, it was tricky too, because like you said, like Shawn said initially, we wanted to make a couple core systems like cooking, liquids, stuff like that, cutting. But every time period, you kind of wanted to show off a special tool from that time period. China had the wok, for example, which was pretty close to just a regular container, but you'd steam a lot. And then Maya had a peat, like a dirt thing, and it was very different. And every time you did that, I was like, yeah, we want to have something new and different, but it also meant, we have to write this new kind of new system for every a new area. So we tried to. It's like you want to make these generic systems, then you also man, this isn't just a regular cooking game. The historical part of it meant you needed some sort of hook for each place. So it's hard to balance. What can we do? That's new and different, and how much time and engineering time do we have to actually do it? So.
Yeah. So on the flip side too, so with that, what recipes were there that you wanted but didn't make the cut, or that the team thought about that you guys just weren't able to get in with the scope you had?
Did we cut a good one? I'm trying to think.
Well, the Maya, the corn dish. What was the corn dish?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you had a corn dish in Maya. Was there something else from one of the other kitchens?
Yeah. So I really can't think about two things.
Well,
we had
the
Mel
thing,
here.
like this
Mel
civilization
was
is
sort of
clearly like
visionary.
so big, right? So there's so much that you could have done.
Yeah. Yeah, Mel was sort of the visionary when it came to the recipes and leading the charge on that.
Yeah. How's your wine looking, Shawn? We're about 10 minutes away from our first little taste.
I mean, I don't know. I think mine needs more cinnamon, so I'm going to probably add more cinnamon. And honestly, I like my wine sweeter, so I did use a semi-sweet wine.
Oh, there's a good aroma there. You want
I think I'm just
to
going
put
to do
your
that.
head in there.
Ooh, hello.
I'm just going to add more honey.
Let's see, we have some regulars in the stream here. Night Killer, good to see you. Fear, good to see you. And I think I saw Gabriel. Gabriel, good to see you as well. We always like to try to stay as regular as possible. This was a earlier one because we wanted to do a cooking one, and we've been getting some feedback that we've been a little bit late for our European and international friends. So we're trying to we're testing this out to see how it feels. So feel free to tell us if you prefer our regular time, if you like this. We want to listen to you guys, so take that into some consideration. So switching gears from the different recipes that you could have done or that made it into the game. What types of whenever you talked about the subject matter consultants, that was something that I wanted to dive into. How did that relationship work, and were there some delightful surprises that the subject matter consultants gave to teams, like, oh wow, we didn't think about that, or like, oh that's really cool, we have a system for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just learning for me, learning a lot about the sort of the fuel, and I remember researching and then talking to the subject matter consultant about Greece, like how in the sort of so the location, the kitchen you're in would be a wealthier house, sort of more in the center of Athens. And one of the reasons it's a wealthier house, that they sort of have a whole indoor room devoted to the kitchen, because a lot of people would sort of either cook in their courtyard or and then eat sort of, could be anywhere in their house, right? And obviously this is another thing is that, the fact that this house is large enough to have a whole room devoted to their kitchen is telling and also fascinating. One thing that I loved learning about was the fire, right? So like starting a fire is kind of a pain in the butt, right? You gotta like get your fire making tools and get a spark to light. And so what they would do is they'd leave the coals burning, and if your coals went out, then you'd have the sort of the embarrassing task of going to your next door neighbor and being like, hey, can I like light something on your coals and bring it back to my fire? And I just found that fascinating, because the idea that like, oh shoot, I let my coals go out, and now I got to go sheepishly to my next door neighbor and like borrow some fire, it's just so foreign, right? Like it's so foreign to us. We just turn a switch and we got fire, or we flick a lighter and we have fire, like a match, fire. Definitely wasn't the case back then. So it's just little things like that, and that's why we always have the coals. Not only that, so it's also useful for gameplay because it's helpful to just have a fire that you can light up. But it's also truthful. Like they would not let their coals go out because it was a big pain in the butt to either go to your neighbor or to start a new fire. That was an interesting thing I learned.
That is cool. I would not have thought of that at all. Yeah, as well as the cooking inside the house versus outside. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it makes sense whenever you think about it, but that's not something that immediately would pop into your mind. You said something about the popping tortillas?
Oh yeah, I mean there were a couple that I was pretty low on the chain for the cultural decisions, but there were a couple like sort of the way the Chinese kitchen deals with sort of the lucky numbers, and I think you're not supposed to put 4 or 5. I forget what it exactly was. Yeah, we had tech. You cook tortillas in Maya, but our subject matter expert was consultant was really wanted to say, hey, when you're cooking tortillas for real, they have to puff up, and then one of the really iconic things is you have to poke them to depuff them. So things like that was just like it gives a lot of depth and a lot of historical sort of context to it. Just cultural context. I guess you still do that if you make them. No, but.
Right. That's cool. Let's see. Zeldy asks, will the game be ported to PlayStation VR? So this is a MetaQuest exclusive game, and if the game sells millions and millions and millions of copies, which we hope it would, that would have the studio think of more ways to make the game more accessible. But for right now, it's a MetaQuest exclusive, and I really enjoy playing the game on the Quest because it was built for the Quest. So there's no controller configurations that you have to think about. That it's a native game for it, and it's very comfortable. You just pick it up and you can just run with it.
It was nice just doing something from one platform. As much as a gamer, I want something very cross-platform. That Meta has really good tools and sort of services that make developing a lot easier than some of the more obscure platforms.
Yeah.
Not the PlayStation VR is obscure, but there are other ones like the Vive and some Pro and things like that.
Well, and there's 7 people who play on the Pimax. But anyway, let's see. So, we
What am I supposed to do with this orange peel?
Oh, actually, you are. So we're going to use it to garnish. So soon. Oh yeah, you're probably done. We're 4 minutes away from ours.
Well, and I know traditionally you would, or in the game at least, you would drink it in a Kylix, which is the sort of wide, shallow cup that has the. In our game, honestly, you can.
We're on the right. I mean,
So I've got this like.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
We'll just use a plate.
It's not really a Kylix, but it is hard to drink out of without spilling. So I figure this will be close enough.
We'll find the hardest cup to drink out of.
we should just do a sauce plate. But, well, because it's not our kitchen, it's the studio's kitchen. We'll stick to the modern mug. What do you smell it? Do you think that there needs to be more honey, or do you think it's good?
I mean, I'm not. How much did you put in each?
I put in a good bit. I could put in more.
Yeah, put a little more, right?
Okay.
It's a whole bottle of wine. I don't know what was our ratio in the recipe. It was a pretty significant amount of wine and honey.
Was there a good amount of honey?
So I'm trying to think. It was like half.
Because we did a full bottle of wine.
It must have been a 5-to-1 ratio, but that's what.
But that's a ton of honey.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if our.
The other thing is that if you were the host of a Greek dinner, it was your responsibility to make sure that your guests didn't get drunk. And so they would always have watered down wine. And if everyone got drunk at your party, that was your fault as the host. That was another interesting thing we learned.
That's a different, we have multiple wine recipes in the game, and one of them is a watered down wine, and one of them is a mulled wine.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, Shawn, are you able to give yours? Okay, the 2 questions.
Oh.
Yeah, so
What's that?
We'll take it. Yeah, so while we wait for the wine to cook, and before we move on, we'll take another question. And let's see. Nicholas asks, okay, yeah. What do you guys think about the PSVR 2 coming out? The specs are pretty impressive.
I just want there to be competition to Meta. I mean, it's good that there's going to be another player out there that's significant. I mean, if you look at, where the sales are at, I mean, the Quest owns everything. So
Right.
I'm very excited to have, as much as it's harder to develop for 2 platforms. And really, I play PC VR at home. I have I use Airlink and play Half-Life Alyx and stuff. Like, I'm excited the PSVR 2 is going to be more of a PC VR spec system. I mean, as much as I love playing Quest games, nothing's come close to playing Half-Life Alyx. And hopefully get more of a push for a higher fidelity VR.
Well, what do you think, Shawn?
What do I think about what? Sorry.
The PSVR 2.
He's so involved with the cooking, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm excited about any and all VR headsets. Yeah, I mean, I think that.
Oh, you think you're excited about all VR?
I'm excited about all VR. Yeah, I mean, I really am, because I think that VR is awesome, and that the more companies that are making cool VR tech, the more it'll push the others to make cool VR tech, and the more that people will have opportunities to try VR tech. So, yeah, I think it's all good.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's a specific
from a marketing perspective, I think that that's good too, right? Because I think the more players or the more industry players that are out there, the more games are going to be, the better the games are going to be, and that helps us build that VR game vocabulary more with people because the player base will grow. And so the understanding of what VR is, what VR games are with more platforms is only going to help us with our messaging. So yeah, I'm totally down for more players in the industry.
Yeah, I think wireless is key. I think, I guess as a developer, like as long as the controllers are mostly the same, like it does become a bit of a headache to support, 5, 6 different controllers. But as long as there's some standards.
Yeah. So I was hoping for a pair of scissors, but I was gonna tear this cheesecloth, and hopefully Joe doesn't get mad at me.
Oh, you're right. It's filter.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Tim. So Sienna asks, "Do you guys play the games you make more than once?"
Yeah, I think I Expect You to Die. It doesn't, that's sort of you figure out the puzzle and that's it. But Until You Fall, I've probably put 20 or 30 hours into that. Like that's a game. I beat it on easy. I think they changed.
Relaxed.
Yeah. Well, I guess they since I played it when it came out for the PC first.
Oh yeah.
And I know they had since done a rebalancing of the difficulties, but
When it first came out, that was a hard game.
Yeah, but I was able to beat it. And then when we did the Quest port, I got back into it and played it for another dozen hours. I couldn't beat it. I never beat it on the Quest, but I have beat it on Steam VR. So
As a tearing it with. Thank you, Joe.
yeah, if you're looking for replayability, that's definitely our best game to sort of lose yourself in. As much as the high production values on our other titles are great, but that one's a roguelite. It's meant to be played for a long time.
Yeah, I play all the games because since I'm not on the dev teams, I got to figure out what the game is about and how to tell it to other people who don't know the game. So I'm constantly playing. Yeah, I Expect You to Die 1 and 2, Until You Fall, Lost Recipes, Mission is Complicated. All the games that you can find on the website that Adam shared, the shellgames.com/games. So
Mission is Complicated is free. I also worked on that.
that's right, and it's a great game.
Did you work on that, Shawn?
I did not work on that. No, not work on Mission is Complicated. But this is delicious.
Is it? Yeah, ours is cooling down, and then I'm cutting the cheesecloth to make sure that fruit doesn't get in our mugs, and then I'm going to cut the orange for our garnish.
I mean, I've definitely had mulled apple cider, in the fall type of thing.
Not
so
your
it's very
apple
similar
cider?
to that, but I do get the hints of the blueberry honey that I use.
Yeah, that does not want to cut. The knife was working better.
I also squeezed some of the orange juice into it because I wanted to have some.
That was pretty good. All right,
It's good. I'm not sure if I should drink this entire pot, but it is very good.
Do it.
Luckily, I have some friends coming over later this week, so I'll save some for them.
Hey, how well does mulled wine keep? Can you reheat it?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I don't know. I mean, regular wine turns to vinegar. I assume mulled wine turns to vinegar.
Like probably faster too.
Yeah,
right?
I would say it's oxidizing faster than room temperature wine.
Yeah, I don't know. Any more questions we got, Adam, while I struggle with this cheese call?
Yeah, I heard someone has some dry ice.
Yeah. Hey, Shawn, what will happen if you add dry ice to it?
Wait, what'd you say?
The question was by no, I won't call her out. The question asked by one of our viewers is, what would happen if you add dry ice to it?
They have dry ice in it?
I had 25 pounds of dry ice earlier in the week because I was using it to create fog for a Kickstarter video. But yes, no, that's a good question. It would make it bubble a lot, and there'd be a lot of carbon dioxide fog. You could make carbonated wine to a degree, I suppose. Dry ice is very fun. Very fun.
Dry ice is fun. In college, we would do something called a gin bucket, and we had dry ice at the bottom with a bunch of gin and various other liquors with dry ice like a fog, and it was really good. All right. Looks like it caught all the debris for you, sir. Well, it still feels kind of warm. Let's see. Caribbean Chips ask, mulled wine can last for a while with the sugar mixed with soda and turn it into a cocktail. That is an idea. Oh yeah, we need the.
What would that cocktail be called? Is there actually a name for that? I've never heard of that. Big cocktail was my COVID hobby. I got into that.
Oh yeah. Let's see. All right. Oh man, that cooks a lot off, huh? Unless I gave Tim a ton.
I mean, you only got. Is that really? It's a whole bottle of wine?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Where'd it go?
It evaporated. All right. All right, so let me cut. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, about the same.
Yeah. All right, let's cut this orange peel here. I'll let you choose whichever one you want. So these two. All right.
My favorite cocktail. My go-to has been an old fashioned, but a Tom Collins has been really fun.
Ooh.
They're like a fancy White Claw or something.
My go-to is the Manhattan, so I just add any of the vermouth pretty much.
I don't like vermouth.
Oh yeah. Oh cool. Let's see. Can you pull up the Scottish Gamer question, Adam?
Sorry,
I
what?
need to turn the video off too for the cooking. I'm done cooking. Where did you guys get the idea of making a cooking game, and were you wanting to show people how to cook, or just to show players how other countries make dishes?
I was excited because cooking is just technically very fascinating and challenging. So it's a bunch of systems playing into each other. So I was very excited to work on this game and experiment with, again, what can we get away with on mobile VR? Could we do dynamic cutting? Could we do procedural cooking, things like that? So from my point of view, from the engineering point of view, it was very fascinating. And it was really neat to be able to do things that were not something you would just find in any kitchen, but to do things that were a little more unique, like cooking in a pit or a kamal or things like that. But the actual idea came from Shawn. Do you have more background on that?
Do I know what?
More background on where we sort of got the idea to actually move forward with this game? So I know it was Jesse sort of had the initial vision.
Yeah, I think I think the idea of eating is universal, right? Everyone needs to eat, and seeing how folks cook and what they eat and how they eat, how they prepare things and their methods is an awesome way to get an insight, right, into that culture. Because it's a universal constant, right? We all need to eat, and it's just fun to see some of these connections and some of where this stuff comes from. So I think that was, combined with the affordances of the cooking in the kitchen, it just makes sense to make this game revolve around cooking. I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, so and I think the second part of that question was about learning to cook or showing the other countries, and I think that there's an intentional educational angle to this. If you want to go into a little bit more detail there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wanted to make it a good game. We wanted to make it fun, but we also wanted to, again, to teach, to explore these different cultures, and I think ideally, right, we would do both, right? We would teach you to cook and teach you about other cultures. But I think, again, to make that possible, we had to make sure that we were saying true things and doing things as close to the real way as possible. Now, obviously, there's things like the sparkle, right? There's the feedback that you're doing well, and that is we call that the chef's intuition. I don't think it's ever called that in the game, but basically that's if you were actually there making it and you had someone to help you, as Tim mentioned before, they would be telling you when you batted enough, when that pinch is enough, or when that is cooked enough. And so we had the sparkle of the chef's intuition was there to substitute for the fact that you couldn't actually taste the end of it, or see, you're not actually cooking with real things, right? So we needed something to fill that void. But other than that, we have had players who have, even before they realized there was a recipe book, just sort of made the meal from directly what they did in the game, and they were able to, right? So that's awesome. That is that is a total win in my book, because it shows that they took the game seriously to think, hey, that would be possible. Maybe I could do this in real life, and then B, that they were able to do it, right? It shows that the sort of the attention to detail, the attention to the physics and the systems and all the engineering that went into that paid off, right? Because people were actually able to learn and able to have fun. It's just super awesome to see.
Yeah, I think to Shawn's point, it was amazing whenever the game came out on January 27th, and with a lot of those content creators and journalists who we worked with were telling us that they created the recipes from it. It was just so cool to see. And we didn't tell them at that point that there was a recipe book. So they would go to the website and see the PDF. They're like, oh, well, that would have been great to have, but I didn't even know, just playing the game, which was pretty cool. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Yeah, what's the most difficult part of making lost recipes?
I mean, for me, I found the hardest part, we make all these systems that work, we're manipulating all these little numbers under the hood to make this game progress forward. And our initial design was to have a little bit of VO and maybe a recipe book that you followed. And then when we sort of pivoted to the more user feedback focused, everything needed to sort of react to what you were doing. which again wasn't that hard just to do that. The hard part was stringing it into a recipe, like and actually have the narrator respond to things, have things sparkle when they were in the right state. Not just that I had enough honey, but is the wine boiled? Are you adding honey to wine? What if there's 5 cups of wine? Which one are you supposed to be adding it to? It was sort of dialing all that in, and it was really challenging for the engineers to expose sort of the properties and then have the designers sort of take those properties and make a recipe out of it. And I think that ended up being a lot harder than we expected, especially because that the first couple months of just planning it out, we didn't really think it was going to be that tight. It was going to be a little looser and sort of, when something cooks, it sparkles, not, hey, it has to be the pork cooking, not just the random onion over there or something. So there was a lot of push and pull against like, where is that, how flexible and how open, how sandboxy is it versus how, if a linear story is this thing. Because we want to be able to do things out of order and it lets you kind of go off the rails because you can cook, you don't have to follow the recipe. You can do everything out of order and you'll still get a perfect score. But you need sort of feedback. It's supposed to be a casual, easy to pick up game. So it was really hard to find that. It was just all the bugs and all the, trying to break it and finding, and making changes and getting like the proportions right and scoring it at the end, using that sort of sandboxy, but not really sandboxy design. That was really challenging.
Yes, and you mentioned briefly scoring, and there was definitely a lot of love that went into that because we didn't want it to be like we wanted people to complete a recipe and know how well they did, right? But also not feel like super pressured to like, oh, I like really like, we wanted to still be fun, and so finding that balance of scoring and also the feedback. The messages that you get on the card, you can actually get multiple. If you watch, they sort of cycle through. If you've done maybe more than one thing a little off, the cards will sort of encourage you, but also give you like, okay, if you want to bring that cooking score up, if you want to bring that presentation score up, here are some things you can try. And sort of finding that right balance between encouragement, but also telling you what you did, but also, hey, you can move on if you want. Or you can try to get 5 stars and everything. Like that's cool too. Like trying to get that feedback, the right amount of feedback and the right tone. We iterated a lot on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the challenges, like I said, when you get off the rails, not only did you have to write all the cases of making the recipe work, anything you do wrong, on the scorecard is going to mention what you did wrong. So we had to figure out all the possible things you could do wrong and write an explicit comment for that. So, and that came pretty late in the game. We tried to just get away with what's the worst thing you did? What's the most obvious thing based on our weighting algorithm? And we realized people were frustrated because sometimes it would be, it's because you burned one thing, but you totally forgot something else. Well, which one's the one we should tell you? And we realized, we have to tell you everything.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Fear, we are loving your comments about the dipping the spoon in and stuff comes out with it. So that's really exciting. So
Food is really hard.
yeah, yeah.
Our spoon engineer almost popped in. She ran away.
Oh yeah. But so thank you for those comments. This is one, so we'll take this one and then we'll go into a little conclusion. This has been a ton of fun. What was your guys' first cooking experience and what was your guys' favorite recipe in Lost Recipes?
Wow. Your first cooking experience ever?
Ever.
Oh God. Probably
microwaving
first cooking
balls.
Experience ever.
Yeah.
It was probably a baking experience of making a birthday cake with my mom when I was a kid.
So, like before I met my wife, my thing I would do is I would chop up a bunch of vegetables, maybe some chicken, throw it in a pot, add water, throw in a ton of whatever spices I had laying around, and I called that my soup.
Nice.
But when I met my now wife, she's like, "You do not make that anymore." So I'm not allowed to cook at home. I'm allowed to make. I have a nice little hummus recipe I can do. That's always fun. And I'm allowed to make chicken tenders in an air fryer. That's my only 2 things.
There you go. For
my favorite Lost recipe is Honolulu because I love like making a whole skewer of just oranges or just grapes or like just making different color combinations, and then the way they look when they're shiny is just so cool. Like it's so candy-like, and I just want to eat it so bad. So I think it's probably Honolulu, but a close second would be the souvlaki because I love cooking the pork over the fire.
Yeah, I like the souvlaki because you get to turn the skewer. The skewer is really fun, and then that cooking. Not everything in the game has that sort of one side cooks faster than the other side. We had that's really expensive on the processor to figure all that out, but the meat all does that, and it's really cool to be able to. You really feel like you're cooking. I really feel like I used to love roasting marshmallows over. I still love roasting marshmallows over a fire.
Okay, so you can do 3 things. So yeah,
That's true. I can make a marshmallow that big. That's my specialty.
yeah, I think the souvlaki as well is one of my favorites in Lost Recipes. And then I always grew up grilling with my dad, so I was a big barbecue person. So yeah, I can make pretty much any type of meat on the grill, and it'll be at least edible. So yeah. But I think that's all the time we have. So thank you all for tuning in to this Dinner with the Devs Lost Recipes edition. It is now available. It's a MetaQuest exclusive. So make sure that you look for it in the MetaQuest store. It came out January 27th. It's a great game. If you need more information, you could just find or type in Lost Recipes on YouTube, and you'll be able to see people play the game as well. Shawn, Tim, thank you guys so much. The mulled wine recipe turned out all right.
Yeah.
I think we needed a little bit more sweetness to it, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad we put the extra in.
Yeah. If we didn't do that, that would have been a little tough.
The orange, I did an extra orange.
Oh yeah, I just ended up putting the orange in. Yeah. So thank you all. Please feel free to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe. Tell us your comments about the video. What other stuff you would like to see. And enable your notifications so whenever we go live, you are able to see it. If you are interested in where we're going to be at the Level Up Expo in Las Vegas from February 25th to 27th, showing Until You Fall and I Expect You Die 2. We have a bunch of Schell gamers going and speaking at the Game Developers Conference at San Francisco, March 21st to 24th. So stay tuned for there. And then we are also planning at being at PAX East in Boston. And that is April 20, I think the same dates, 21st to 25th, something like that. So continue to stay up to date with all of our social media. We'll be telling you what other experiences that we are working on, where you can meet our team, where you can see our team and talk to them. So thank you all for joining. And next month we have another Dinner with the Devs. The subject, stay tuned. We'll tell you soon. Thank you guys.